This is the Patrick Henningsen Show on TNT Radio.
All right, folks, welcome back. Welcome back to this live broadcast. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're live and direct. Final segment of the final hour here, joined by Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press on the live link from the Big Apple, our legal correspondent with the latest. Matthew, take it away.
Sure. Well, great. As I'm sure you know, it's prime political season. We've gotten into the real slugfest, Trump versus Biden. But on the legal front, in fact, only today, this is you'll be the first to know it. Trump, a lot of people were saying he wouldn't do it. He asked for a stay of this $83.3 million judgment for E.G. and Carroll for a sexual assault and a defamation. The sexual assault all back in 1996, but the defamation was more recent. While he was president, she came out with a book and an excerpt in New York Magazine. And he said, she's a whack job. I don't know her at all. In any event, he's paying the piper, or at least he's paid somebody else to pay the piper. There's a bond. He's posted a bond for $91.3 million. It's through something called Federal Insurance Company, which means that basically they take a security interest in some properties. No, that's not a public process. The only thing that's public is the bond company posting the bond. But they did post. It's a bond posting appeal. It's basically saying we don't have to pay until we either lose the appeal or whatever. But many people were saying he doesn't have it. I say this because it's been a in and out all week as his lawyer Alina Habba asked for a stay and was ultimately shot down by the judge. I saw that one coming, and there's obviously a larger one that's going to be in the New York State system, which is the Letitia James, $400+ million one. So there are people saying like he's broke. How can he do it? Meanwhile, as I'm at wherever you may be, there yesterday was the State of the Union. First of all, let's go back to the beginning of the week. I'm sure you know all of this, but it's basically just a two-man race now. Nikki Haley, as we both predicted last Friday, dropped out after Super Tuesday. Didn't endorse, said she wants Trump to gain her win over her supporters. Not sure that's going to be possible, especially many of the people that voted for her in the primary may have been either independents or Democrats. But she did win Vermont. You have to give credit where credit is due. She won DC, then she won Vermont. So it wasn't a shutout. He didn't pitch a shutout, but those are pretty small territories. Also, Dean Phillips, who was the kind of the younger alternative to Biden. He was one of the ones that was sort of bold enough to come out and say we need a younger candidate. And he tried to be that candidate, but he just never got any traction. I was kind of surprised that he dropped out because I thought the premise of his campaign was this guy might keel over, and here I am. But apparently he doesn't think that's going to happen either. And I think you may have to admit it. I'm not sure if you saw the State of the Union, but it was a changed and supercharged Joe Biden from my point of view. I didn't know how it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be like the Q&A stakeout he did after the report calling him senile, where he mispronounced the name, misperceived the president of Mexico and Egypt. But I would say it's hard not to. And I'm sure that there are some Republican pundits saying that he screwed, he was cogent. He was cogent. He was abrasive. He was populist. It's not just senile versus vibrant lawbreaker as it had been portrayed. I want to throw it over to you because I've been actually as I was taking it in, I was wondering what you might think of it, because it wasn't. There was a few coughs, there was a few gaffes. Go ahead.
To me, Matthew, it was just an angry State of the Union. It was, Biden clenching his fists and talking about we need to stop Putin because he's going to overrun Europe. And it's not really a credible analysis at this point. But this idea of still selling the Ukraine war, like we just need to give him more weapons. And there's no chance that Ukraine's going to defeat Russia. It's not in this universe, maybe in a parallel democratic or Beltway universe in their minds anyway. But so, I mean, the anger and kind of his sort of vitriolic Biden, who knows? I mean, I think he was clearly hopped up on, I don't know, is it the B12 shots? Is it the amphetamines?
There's many people they want. Oh, sure. I think that they would definitely many people would want whatever he was taking. That's all I'm saying. I wasn't touching at the substance of what he said, but I was going to say that it was a surprise to me. It was particularly the taunting aspect of it, of saying, "Oh, you don't like that bill?" I mean, it's a little unfair because, of course, they can't.
He was taunting the hecklers, wasn't he?
Totally.
Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that in the State of the Union address?
I think we're in a unique. I mean, I thought. It's hard to, from the Trump side, it's hard to say that, an angry speech is a bad thing, because I've seen a lot of angry speeches. But I agree, I had never seen one I don't really remember back to what the Trump States of the Union were like, particularly in the last year when it was clearly something that could be used as a campaign speech. I just have to say, and again, I'm saying this I don't want to say objectively. I think he if the goal was to show I'm not dead, he definitely did it. And he did clench his fist, and he showed I can still clench my fist. Now, there was a little bit of color for people. Marjorie Taylor Greene had sort of famously said before it that she was going to decide in the heat of the moment whether to speak up, and she did. First, she appeared in flaming red, MAGA hat, and was kind of, there's a kind of, it started late because everyone's wanting to take but she was also in the line of kind of people. She wanted to, I guess, catch his eye and kind of like, maybe rattle him. It's almost like a sports game. It's like somebody's coming in out of the locker room and like everyone's like, yeah. And on the other side, people are like, yeah. And so, but he, again, I want to say this, I think he dealt with her pretty deftly. She went with the, American killed by migrant. And he was like, yeah, baby. And he had the pin. So whether or not his policies are actually stopping that or encouraging that, that's a whole nother question. But just in terms of the optics, I'm just having to say this. And then I don't know if we're in your far-flung travels, you even make time for the Republican rebuttal. But I'll say that I did, because I wanted to see how they would do it. And this is one of these things where it's like, to me, it's like a whipsaw, because it was a little folksy. It was a little. They had a woman who's a junior senator from Alabama, 40 years old, very aw shucks, and she chose to film her, or stream, I guess you could say. She must have had massive TV trucks outside of her house. She made it look like you just happened to like stumble into her Alabama kitchen. She was just like having a late night snack, after watching Sleepy Joe, but to me, it actually started working. She was like, we're hardworking people, and she had this really gruesome story of having gone to the Texas border and met the victims of cartel trafficking, raped repeatedly, and she's there. And again, she's speaking from sort of like, here I am, me and Wesley. She kept talking about Wesley. I thought Wesley was going to like walk in from off screen. Her husband Wesley, and this is where we have the hard conversations. I don't think senators are that poor, but she was like, the cost of milk, everything is up, me and Wesley. So to me, I actually thought it sort of worked. I mean, maybe I misunderstand. And then I saw a lot of right-wing people saying like he was too weak, it was too staged. They needed like Mike Lee or, Matt Gaetz or Getz or. So I don't know. And no one really knows. I mean, we assumed that Trump hated the speech, but from what I heard, Truth Social went down. Truth Social sort of froze up, kind of like Twitter did for Ron DeSantis. It couldn't handle the traffic. So that's not a good sign. So I would say there are many weeks we said we're like Joe's in decline, and Trump, despite his many legal travails, is coming up. I have to score at least Thursday for Sleepy Joe. When your social media platform goes down and the other guy's trash talking and turning a meme around on Marjorie Taylor Greene, you gotta. It is what it is. It's only one day though. It's a long time to go. The question is, does he have the staying power to keep up, or the whatever he was on? Is there enough? But for now, something is afoot. There's life in that. There's life down in those blue waters. So watch out, I would say. Watch out.
Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of speculation that
sure.
Biden's going to get dumped at the DNC convention in August, and that Trump might also get knocked off. I mean, what are your assessment, Matthew, with all the lawfare, all the cases? Do you see Donald Trump coming through this gauntlet in the end and getting the nomination from the RNC and literally into the general in November? What about Trump's
I have
chances?
to say, and I was about to say, the difference is, you would say that in a way he has a much harder path than Biden. Biden, to our knowledge, other than the possibility of Hunter Biden doing whatever he might do, and that seems to also just as Trump famously said he could kill someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and still be a free man, Hunter Biden can apparently smoke crack and buy a gun and still nothing happens, and take $1 million diamond from a shadowy Chinese firm. So Trump's road is harder, but he has more skin in the game. And I say this here. Why do I say this? I mean, Biden has his reputation and his legacy and his ego and whatever. Maybe he's still the big guy. I don't know. But Trump definitely has a true incentive in the sense that all of his federal legal problems could go away if he wins. Right? Let's go back to this. Not to say that that's why he got it into him in the first place, but they have now surrounded him with whatever the Shakespearean term is, a vast array of travails. I'm paraphrasing, of course, the slings and arrows. I mean, he's totally, if he loses, and if those cases go forward, you really might see, as in front of the courthouse here, there's the Honduran former president on trial, and it came up in the jury deliberation that there's a guy in a orange jumpsuit playing the defendant out in the sidewalk in front of the courthouse. You might see, I don't know if they would actually make a former president wear an orange jumpsuit, but they're gunning for him. There's two federal cases, and so it would behoove him. It would behoove him to win, because then he would obviously pardon himself. So I'm not trying to be cynical, but I think absent an absolute legal bar or a total physical ban, he's going for it. And if he has supporters that would support him to do that. I think Biden probably is going to get through absent medical issues. He's the man. And I think what he did last night, removed some of the doubts that he can at least prop himself up through November. Now, 4 years from now, I don't know what things are going to look like. And I don't think anybody does. And they should care about that. But that's not really the issue. The issue now is here's the real, would there be debates? Will there be debates after the two conventions? I can't really imagine them. I don't think so. I think that we've reached a point where, I don't think either side, I don't know. Maybe would Trump want a debate? I think if he thought Biden would turn him down, he might taunt him and, go maybe send Marjorie Taylor Greene out there.
I thought it was whether the people wanted to debate, Matthew, to see how the conversation's going in America. It's does Biden doesn't want to debate, Trump doesn't want to debate. What about us? Yeah, what about the electorate? We want to debate. We absolutely want to debate.
Here's I was going to jokingly say, ask Menendez, Senator Menendez, if you've heard of him. I have an update on that if you want to hear it. He's famously the gold bar senator from New Jersey who took a lot of money to help Sisi get weapons, et cetera, et cetera. One of his co-defendants has now pled guilty. And it turns out that it's probably a cooperation agreement, because as soon as the guy pled guilty, they filed a superseding indictment on Mr. Robert Menendez with more charges. And he's now requested, Monday there's going to be a hearing that I'm going to cover, but he wants to put back the May 6th trial. He says it's too much. There's too many charges coming at him. They're like, hey, you were on notice. You did the crime, do the time. So that's going to be an interesting one. I guess what I mean is to say is that it seems like politics are kind of falling apart. There's an interesting race that we didn't talk about, but I think you and your viewers should know about it. And it's in California. It involves at least one character who I'm sure is on your radar, and one that may be if you're a baseball fan. The man on your radar is Shifty Schiff. Have you heard of him?
No.
I call him Dr. Zizmore of the famous Zit doctor that's sued for fraud here in New York. Very smooth skin. He's basically pretty much sitting pretty to become the next U.S. senator from California. Adam
Schiff. Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff, the progenitor of Russiagate, the man with the bulgy eyes.
He's very proud, and he's very savvy. So he had in California, for those who don't know, they have something. Okay, I'm trying. In California, they have something called the jungle primary, and it's not. They don't actually come out with claws. What it means is it's not party lines. It's not like the presidential one is, where you have a separate process for Democrats, separate process for Republicans, and then the two face off. Whatever two come in first in an open primary are the finalists. So often in California, you have two Democrats. The top two Democrats fight again. Usually the first guy still comes in first, but sometimes not. If the person in second can bring together the candidates 3, 4, 5, and 6 with them, they can catapult into the first in the general election. Well, Shifty Schiff wasn't looking for that. he was opposed by a progressive, not a member of the squad, I wouldn't say, but a progressive, financially progressive congresswoman named Katie Porter, who's like a kind of a protege of Elizabeth Warren. That's how I put her. I'm going somewhere here. We're going to get to a crypto reference, believe it or not. It shocked me. But so Katie Porter wanted to run. And I think that she feels that her part of the Democratic Party is ascendant, strong antitrust, anti-crypto. It turns out to be a big thing of hers. And she was ready to roll when, lo and behold, two things happened. Number one, a long retired, famous California baseball player, Steve Garvey, once the first baseman of the Los Angeles Dodgers and also the San Diego Padres. So he's got that whole southern part of the state covered. He's, according to him, and I watched his election night speech. He said that 7 months ago, he woke up and looked at the TV and saw that the country was falling apart. And he decided to take his baseball bat right out of the closet. He didn't take it to the TV, but he took it he's stepping onto the stage once again. Now, many people say he has no chance. I don't know if it's true. I kind of liked his after party, but his Schiff decided to elevate him, to go on the attack, to spend $10 million in TV ads saying Steve Garvey's a Trump supporter, he's terrible, which raised Steve Garvey up such that he came in second, and Katie Porter was ousted. She won't be in the you should check this one out because this race has it all. So one, it shows the incredible shiftiness or sophistication of Adam Schiff to basically be able to choose his opponent. At least that's the storyline. Now, of course, Steve Garvey has a different storyline. He says, you may be careful what you wish for. You may think you wanted this old warrior in the ring, but you're throwing 70-mile-an-hour fastballs, and I'm going to take you deep. And then Katie Porter, this is where we're going to turn back into the current state of American politics. Katie Porter said this was all rigged. This is a big thing over here today because it's basically the Democrats want to say the Republicans are killing politics by casting aspersion on the electoral process and false claims of electoral fraud. And suddenly you have a relatively high profile Democrat talking about things being rigged against her. That's the key word, rigged. She's had to now change her tune because I think she's out. I don't think she keeps her seat since she did this race, but she thinks she has the future. But many Democrats didn't like it because it makes them, they're no longer the party that, as Joe Biden presented them last night, that believes in elections and that elections are good. She's talking about a rigged election. Now, what she ends up saying is it was rigged by crypto, that because she and Elizabeth Warren are so anti-crypto, that various Coinbase and the Winkle brothers and various people came in and flooded the zone with dark money. So she's had to go back and say rigged just means cheating. Rigged didn't mean that the electoral process wasn't clean. But I think that she's really having to go in retreat. Of course, to Schiff, it's all gold because it's like he's got the old baseball player that he thinks he can strike out. I don't know. Steve might come through. Steve is sort of unapologetically. He voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, which is not very popular in California. But he is a former baseball player, and he has a simple kind of Reagan-like kind of simplicity to him. He says he wants to help the homeless mostly by taking them off the street. California is like famously sort of, not falling apart, but like people go to San Francisco and there's people like living in front of CVS. I don't want to make it a cartoon, but it's it's kind of like permissive negligence. Nobody wants to say like you're too crazy to be out here. So things are getting pretty crazy. Same thing in New York, actually. That it's there's a lot of stuff going on. But so that was considered one of the big down ticket races. The only problem that the Democrats see, and this is the real nitty gritty of politics, is that by Schiff having so deftly basically locked up his race now, if you believe him, his coattails, such as they are, Schiff's. I wouldn't really want to put much stock in Schiff's coattails, but they believe that for other races in California, but California is a blue state, but there are definitely some red districts. Witness Kevin McCarthy and various other people. So if people don't show up to vote for Shifty Schiff, he might have to pump up Steve Garvey again. He might have to make him an even more scary opponent, and then he might watch out because Steve might. He's done it before. He hit a walk-off home run, as he himself pointed out. It was his speech was full of baseball references, but it's America. It's another time. He's a man from another time.
I remember trading Steve Garvey's baseball cards in the early
great.
1980s. Matthew,
Sure.
show you how old we are. Los Angeles Dodgers. I can't believe. Actually, I'd like to see Steve Garvey in the U.S. Senate. I think this would be good. I don't know about Adam Schiff. I don't really want to see Adam Schiff in government. I think after the Russiagate farrago, people like him should be put into cold storage, politically speaking, anyway. But these swamp creatures, Matthew, they are survivors, if anything. They have absolutely a knack and skill for the resilience is breathtaking. It doesn't matter how bad the scandal is, doesn't matter how many times you fail. They will literally find a way to upgrade within the Beltway food chain.
He's very popular. I think the Democrats view Schiff as an up and comer. He's like, bring it on, bring it on. I do because of the Ukraine has come up. Is it true? Or have you seen this idea that Ukraine has actually sent its own soldiers? There's always talk. Macron was famously saying maybe he would be sending in French soldiers or European soldiers if they exist, but that Ukraine has actually sent military personnel to Sudan. This is now this is getting into.
I saw those reports
to counter the Wagner Group. This is a possible world war here. It's kind of a Bush League world war in the sense that like it's only in one country, but it is an interesting twist on things. The idea being that Russia has aligned itself with it's called the military government of Sudan. It's actually the official government. The whole thing's been after Bashir in total decay. The rebels are worse though. The rebels seem
the
to be
RSF,
really
the rapid.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem to be basically the Janjaweeds. They're funded by UAE though. Everybody has a piece of this party, but they thought it was just a matter of warring Islam, rich Islamic microstates funding genocide. Once again, the third genocide in about 2 decades in Sudan. But now it's become a proxy war with Russia on one side, supposedly mining gold to fund its campaign in Ukraine, and for that reason, Ukraine's sending troops. I asked the UN this week in writing, do you think that they would? This is a clear spillover. This is the kind of thing they're supposed to like get hot and bothered about. Nothing, absolutely zero. But that's today's UN for you. But I thought I'm going to turn I want to turn this on you. How boned up are you on Transnistria these days? I heard a report that Transnistria is inviting in. They want some support from Moscow, as they always have, but that they might actually get it this time, just to sort of like thicken the stew. Are you on top of that one?
Well, I think this is a direct response from the announcement that NATO will be positioning some forces in Moldova, just next door to Transnistria. So listen, the Transnistria is absolutely paramount strategically if we're looking at this Ukraine conflict, Matthew, because that land bridge that everybody's talking about from basically the Donbass to Crimea, if Odessa collapses under Ukrainian control and Russia makes the play for Odessa, then that completes the land bridge to Transnistria. You'll probably see a referendum in Transnistria, and there you have it. Historic Novorossiya reestablished once again as per the old map.
I'm glad you're like Steve Garvey now. I'm throwing you
talking to the right guy.
Fastballs. I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought you would knock that one out of the. But I'm going to in breathtaking speed. You may remember George Santos. His career was much shorter.
How can we forget,
Garvey's.
Matthew? How can we forget George Santos?
But we haven't. There's two things on George Santos. People thought they'd heard the end of him. He was indicted. He's probably going to be convicted. While the case was pending, he was actually one of the few Congress people thrown out of Congress for all of his various frauds. And people thought, and then he showed up at a Trump victory party in New Hampshire, seemingly in violation of his terms of release, but he'd actually gotten permission. But now, this week, the very same prosecutors who were bringing him down, the Eastern District, right across the East River here from Manhattan, in Brooklyn, they went after a guy in El Paso, Texas, called Mr. Medina, for trying to defraud George Santos. Don't con a conner. And the story of this is that this guy Medina, very savvily, I guess it's kind of a dollar in a dream. He emailed George Santos in the middle of his legal problems and said, if you Venmo me $25,000, I can make the case go away. And I guess George must have told, I don't know how they found out about it. I don't know if George paid and it didn't go away. That's quite possible. But anyway, he's now repositioned in this case. He's called like victim one, but it's totally obvious. It says victim one was a congressman from, for a very short period of time from Nassau County and Queens. It's totally George Santos. So I don't know if to go after Medina, they're going to need Santos's testimony, or they can just use the fraudulent email. But George Santos continues to have many faces, and only today has it been announced he's going to run again. He's chosen another district and another persona, maybe the victim persona, as a person, targeted. But he's incredible. I've got to say, this kind of sums up U.S. politics in a nutshell.
You should be banished to the outer reaches of the universe after what he's done. I mean, how many fabrications, how many sort of lies? So he basically broke every record in the book for how many times you could sort of pile up all the worst things on a resume, and yet he gets kicked out of Congress, and he's going to run again. Unbelievable.
It's a free country. Then someone was like, how can he run it while he's being indicted? Well, look at the top of the ticket. But so now, look, Patrick, I know Honduras may not be your favorite country on earth, but I will say I've spent the last 3 weeks covering this case, and it paid off. The defendant took the stand, which is extremely rare, but I think he saw the writing on the wall that if he didn't, he'd probably be sitting in jail for life. So he decided, if you're going to, go out with a blaze. And he talked a good game. This is where you're going to like it. He did from his own mouth say, I met with John Kelly 20 times. About the war on drugs and fighting migrants in the Central American Triangle. He met with Trump, but he also met with Obama and Biden. I have all these photographs. I'm right. This isn't the next Inner City Press book, but that's not why I'm telling you it. I'm telling you it because it's come to an enormous. He got confronted on cross-examination. He tried to say that I don't know the drug traffickers. In fact, they're afraid of me. I don't know any of them. And then they were like, well, what about this photograph? And it's a photograph of him. It's admittedly at the 2010 World Cup, which Honduras made. I didn't remember that, despite all the sports references in today's broadcast. Honduras was in the World Cup, and Juan Orlando was at the World Cup, and he was hugging the biggest drug traffickers in the country, all of them wearing blue Honduras shirts. And so he said, instead of just saying, like, got me, he said, maybe that's not me. They're like, are you being serious? The jury's like looking at him, and it was the worst. Like, I don't know how his lawyers didn't prepare him for that. And now there's been a last minute Hail Mary. The jury began deliberating yesterday, and they're deliberating now. And in between the 2 days of deliberation, his defense team tried to reopen the case with some late breaking information saying that the U.S. State Department reports indicate that drugs trafficked across Honduras actually declined in his time. And I think it's probably the reports do say that. The problem is you can't believe those State Department reports, right? They're basically, it's like when they come out with the world religious freedom or human trafficking. Basically, any country the U.S. doesn't like is like, whoa, you're the worst. And the ones that are working with the U.S. are suddenly like, whoa, you've really brought the number down. So now the prosecution is having to defend itself from its own State Department reports. So it's interesting. Whether this will be a good ground for appeal, he'll have a lot of time, but conceivably. Maybe he's going to be acquitted. I don't know. The title of the book is Narco Presidente.
You deserve a free holiday in Honduras at the expense of the tourist board of Honduras. Your PR for that country has
been offered. I think it's sort of like
invaluable.
A burrito, a Honduran burrito. But I think I'm going to be up here for the Trump trial.
Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, thank you for joining us. Big thank you also to Clarice Wiedorven in the second hour, Russell, Texas, Bentley, Basil Valentine. Powerful show. This is the last episode we're doing on this time slot. We'll talk to you guys later. Keep an eye on our social media feeds for updates and to tntradio.live. We'll be hopefully repositioning the show. I appreciate